Welcome back to the History Coach. Okay, today we're going to be talking about topic 2.3, exchange in the Indian Ocean. We're hopefully going to get through 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, and 2.7. So it'll be really 2.3 to 2.7. Okay, so if we look at our next slide, I always emphasize contextualization in everything that we do in this class. All right, so I had a question right here, okay, the prompt. We see, identify one way the Mongols contributed to the expansion of trade in Eurasia, explain one way the Mongol disrupted existing political structures in Eurasia, and C, explain one similarity between the Mongols and another nomadic empire in history. Okay, so every part of those questions on the SAQ has to deal with what they knew before, okay? What came before the Mongols, okay? Pretty much expanded Afro-Eurasian trade. Okay. We also talk about how existing political structures were in place before the Mongols instituted their khanates. Okay, and then another historical thing and skill we really focus on is comparison and contrasting. Okay, explain one similarity between the Mongols and another nomadic tribe, pretty much from Central Asia. The Tatars, the Uyghurs. That's important to know that those nomadic tribes in that area of the world were larger in number, but the Mongols expanded past that. So again, everything we do in class is really talking about the contextualization, the context of the time period we're covering. Okay, so I have them answer A, B, and C. So here we go, 2.3, exchange in the Indian Ocean. All right, you could see that this map is wide. It shows everything from the monsoon winds to the Swahili coast and the demand for ivory. Yeah, piano keys, okay, gun holsters. It's a luxury item, okay. We can see powerful empires that existed in India, in Southeast Asia, okay. The importance of the Chinese merchants, okay, the impact of the Vijayanagar trade empire, okay, the Malayan Strait, the need for spices right here, okay. Again, you could see this is Marco Polo, okay, traveling all throughout the Indian Ocean. So again, those maps are wide, they're varied, but very important to understand that everything is geographical based. Geography, geography, geography. 10 important terms. Okay, so the Indian Ocean Trade Network was the largest sea-based trade network during this period. Unlike the Silk Roads, okay, that really focused on luxury items, the Indian Ocean trade primarily dealt with regular goods, bulk items, okay, at lower costs. Water transportation allowed for easier movement. So they're using these junk ships, these large ships that can carry, okay, large amounts of goods all throughout the Indian Ocean. Now think about it, they can also predict when they can take off and when they could arrive in port cities all throughout the Indian Ocean. Okay, it's kind of like the very first Amazon timed schedule. Okay, so you could see large items like timber, ivory, sandalwood were transported on the Indian Ocean Trade Network. Okay, so Indian Ocean trade differed, like I talked about, in the Silk Roads as it occurred obviously on the sea. They faced unpredictable wind patterns during the monsoon. Okay, monsoon, we call it the monsoon marketplace, that these monsoon winds pushed sailors left and right, but again, almost predictable. So every time you travel throughout history, you have to adapt to the environment. You have to adapt to, natural occurrences. So because the monsoon winds went left, right, up, and down, okay, a lot of these ships had to use lateen sails. Remember, they had to invent and create technology for better trade, for adaptability, okay? But understanding these monsoon winds was crucial for these trade routes. Now, advancements, okay, like the astrolabe, okay, improved navigation and maneuverability, okay, the compass. So it's very important to realize that, okay, technological innovations occurred due to these trade patterns. Okay. Now, communities that are now coming into contact all throughout Afro-Eurasia, especially in the Indian Ocean, started to emerge. Key term that we see right here, diasporic, to disperse, okay, but then come in contact with one another. You have Arabs and Persians now in Eastern Asia, Chinese merchants in Southeast Asia, Malayan communities in the Indian Ocean basin. Okay, it increased interaction between different cultures due to widespread trade networks. And you also want commonalities within those regions. Okay, the commonality that connected all of the Indian Ocean trade networks, a lot of these port cities, was religion. Okay, so you look at today, Southeast Asia. How did the majority of the population in Southeast Asia adopt Islam? Well, it's because of this trade network. So if you're a buyer or a seller, the one thing that you guys had in common was to adopt, okay, this religion of Islam. Now, not only did you use that as a connectivity magnet, you also use that in your government, in your politics, how you structure society. So religion, day one, okay, is the backbone to a lot of these empires, these trading empires, and so forth. Okay, now it facilitated influential states. We'll talk about the east coast of Africa. We talked about it a little bit about it in Unit 1, the Swahili coast, reminiscent of ancient Greek city-states. They prospered all throughout the trade. States like the Gujarat, India, all right, and the Sultanate of Malacca gained wealth and power, with Malacca strategically controlling a crucial strait between itself, all right, and East Asia. Now, the trade network facilitated culture. If you watch the history coach, not only were goods traded on these trade routes, it's the culture. So when you think of culture, you think of like food, you think of what you celebrate as a culture. Okay, examples of culture and the cultural interaction could be rice. Now Persia, the Middle East, is adopting it. Okay, you could see the banana that came out of Papua New Guinea. It is flourishing all throughout Africa and then eventually the world. Why is that so important? It's because your diet, it's the vitamins, it's everything that's being produced by these goods coming from all around the world. Okay, now if it wasn't for two major men that we've talked about early on with the history coach, Ibn Battuta, okay, and Marco Polo. All right, you have Admiral Zheng He. He utilized these trade routes. Okay, Chinese admiral, but these men, okay, and you know, they really focused on chronicling their journeys. Okay. Don't forget to always think and remember the key themes. Okay. You have 6 key themes. We always talk about humans and the environment. Okay. We talk about cultural development and interactions, governance, economy, social interactions and organization, and technology and innovations. Those are always key themes we talk about in every unit, okay, in AP World History. So here are some questions to think about. Okay, questions 1, 2, and 3, ranging from how did the operation of the Indian Ocean Trading Network differ from that of the Silk Roads? All right, what was the role of the Swahili civilization in the world of the Indian Ocean commerce? Okay, other crash course videos that I do show, okay, talks about international commerce, okay, snorkeling camels in the Indian Ocean trade. Questions 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I always like to give props where it's due. Freemanpedia and Heimler, shout out. Okay, great review links. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Trans-Saharan trade networks. We talked a lot about it in Unit 1, but now we're going to talk about the connectivity. Here's a map, okay, showing the Trans-Saharan trade route. Okay, everything from the powerful empires to the technology of the camel, all right, major cities that came up, okay, all throughout West Africa and North Africa, these trading centers, okay. You can see Ibn Battuta's journey, okay. He started out first on his pilgrimage to Mecca, just like Marco Polo started out with the papacy orders to visit the Yuan dynasty. Okay, 2 things that they have in common, but these large empires emerged, okay, and flourished because of the Trans-Saharan trade route. Okay, I mean, guys, all of Middle East and Asia and Europe really did not know that there were flourishing empires in Africa, especially West Africa, that could, okay, trade items like gold, like salt, okay, and then eventually labor. but we'll talk about that in later units. Okay, 10 key terms we need to know. Now, we see that the Trans-Saharan trade route transformed West Africa by connecting it to the larger parts of the world. This trade route in particular was intriguing as it really required the need for human adaptation. Think about the geography, okay? You're in a desert for the most part. It's hot. How do you adapt to that? How do you get caravans, okay, that can travel all throughout these harsh conditions? All right, one, you use camels, okay, and we know the importance of camel, okay, the saddle on the camel, the importance of West African salt. That is huge, okay? West African salt was unlike salt anywhere around the world. It was durable, just like champa rice, okay? It could replenish, believe it or not, okay? It doesn't spoil, and it literally was forms of currency all throughout West Africa. It's pretty cool. Okay. Now, technological advancements, like I talked about, okay, camel saddles allowed for faster travel across the desert, caravans, groups of traders, all right. A lot of these traders were Berbers. Remember that key term, okay? And they also adopted Islam, and so did these governing chiefs. Even Mansa Musa, the most richest man in human history, caused inflation on his trip to Mecca. All right, it's important to know that these caravans not only facilitated goods across West Africa, but they also, exchanged cultural ideas. All right, so the spread of Islam and the empire expansion, we see wealthy empires like Mali, like we talked about in Unit 1, Ghana, and Songhai, okay, known for its abundant amount of gold reserves and abundant amount of salt, okay? So I asked questions like, what problems did Mansa Musa cause in the places he traveled? Inflation. How did empires West Africa convert to Islam? And it's almost the commonality, I can't even speak right now, all right, between buyers and traders and kings and chiefs, okay? And we know the writings of Ibn Battuta, okay, traveled all throughout Afro-Eurasia, inspired others to travel those regions. Think about it, okay? And we know what linked the peoples of East Africa, okay, will soon be religion, okay? So, Marco Polo, important, okay, I talked about the impact of the salt trade, All right, cultural consequences. Looking at this map, these are the travels, okay, of Ibn Battuta, Marco Polo, all right? And Marjorie Kemp, yes, okay, you had Marjorie Kemp come from England, and she was really the very first female influencer. We could see that she made it all the way down to Jerusalem, okay, but she was the first one to publish her tales and her experiences going down to the Middle East, while Ibn Battuta and Marco Polo traveled all throughout Afro-Eurasia, inspiring men like Columbus and these other European kings and European travelers, okay? So you can see, again, I stress the importance of paper making, okay? This map does show how original paper, when it emerged in 105 CE. But it spread west, and as it spread west, you started to see, okay, regions of Afro-Eurasia adopt this new form of paper making, okay, obviously from timber and hemp. Other forms of, paper making or chronicle on scrolls, they were not as durable and reliable. I always ask my students, why do we see a lot of paper making, mass production of paper making occur here in Western Europe? Remember the printing press, okay? That was the first Kinko's. Now, what comes out of that is the fact that you now have a more literate society. In Europe, it was really the church-based, right, images for people who could not read, but now you start to have more educational systems come up, you start to have more ideas come up, and then you kind of ask, well, okay, they're now being mass-produced. Paper is so important, just like gunpowder. Now people are starting to think and possibly learn about Marco Polo's travels, Ibn Battuta's travels. Let's find a quick way to get into East Asia for all those spices and luxury items. 10 important key terms, okay? Now, most importantly, religion, okay? Buddhism, Hinduism, and Islam. Along these trade routes, you're going to see, okay, Buddhist temples, okay, elements of Hinduism. Islamic mosques in these large trading centers. Okay, not only were they places of worship, but they were places for scholarly ideas. Okay, it's also important to know now you have your states or your empires base religions like Confucianism, like Taoism, okay, Shintoism in Japan. Now, when they get exposed to other elements of religion, they only kind of emphasize their aspect of their religion, like Neo-Confucianism. It emerged in China as a response to the growing influence of Buddhism during the Tang Dynasty. All right, it integrated some Buddhist elements into Confucianism, aiming to reaffirm Confucian's practices and principles. Okay, trade not only facilitated the exchange of goods, but it also led to cultural syncretism and the blending of traditions across vast geographical regions. What are we seeing in this? We're seeing the emergence of the modern world. Okay. So, the spread of Hinduism and Islam and diffusion of innovations. Okay. Hinduism spreads into Southeast Asia. Islam spreads all throughout Afro-Eurasia. Okay. And the importance right here of papermaking, gunpowder, and so forth. Okay. Now, Ibn Battuta, little notes on him, and Marco Polo. We know their importance. Okay. I also have a chart that they need to fill out. Okay. What were the cultural contributions of both? They were the first influencers. All right. So I also have 5 questions based off of the importance of all of these trade routes. Okay. Due by the start of next class. Okay. Environmental consequences. Huge in 2.6. Okay. Everything is peachy, king. Everything is great moving across Afro-Eurasia. But we do see the one negative, which is the impact of diseases and the bubonic plague, or better known as the Black Death. I just posted a great Black Death, even though it's not great, video or a short on YouTube about the impact of the Black Death. Okay, who would win? All right, all of Europe or a sick rat? Now, we know the Black Death, all right, was transported all throughout Afro-Eurasia, hitting Europe the hardest. These were infected fleas on the back of rats that came from the cargo ships. We know the Mongols could have been conduits in spreading this disease, infected corpses over the city walls. But at the same time, Mongols were nomadic. They moved all throughout Afro-Eurasia, and they came in contact with a lot of people. That's why they weren't infected as much as Europeans. It's important to know that, but again, in some towns, the bubonic plague absolutely wiped out half of their population. Now, what good can come out of the bubonic plague? Well, not a lot, but important to know that improvements in medical innovations, improvement in sanitation. But now think of the population that was decimated the most. It was the workforce. So now if you went back in time and traveled throughout Europe, there's really no one in the 1300s, but you need a workforce. So important to know that this workforce could now kind of barter deals. They could negotiate contracts. You can almost say it ended feudalism. The Mongols ended feudalism, or the Black Death ended feudalism. Well, that's for the next chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is important to know that the networks of exchange created the modern world. I hope you guys enjoyed this last section. Take care.